It's not every day that a warehouse secretary discovers that what haunts her life isn't bills or last-minute meetings but shadows, creeping between cement shelves and steel beams. My name is Era, and what you're about to read is not a product of my imagination or a sleepless night. It's what's left of my sanity after nights filled with trances, possessions, and a grief that still claws at my chest. Have you ever felt that the place you work, the place where you spend more time than home, holds more than just dust in the corners? Ever looked at someone close and felt that something was off? I'm not talking about stress or fatigue. I'm talking about vacant eyes, inhuman behavior, and paranormal sensations that chill you to the bone. It might sound exaggerated now, but keep listening. This story involves witchcraft, jealousy within the family, and a desperate quest for redemption. It all began with Claudio, a model employee. Strong, cheerful, reliable. But one night shift was all it took for everything to unravel. He was never the same again. And because of that, neither was I. The question isn't why did this happen, but rather what if it happened to you? Get ready to dive into a raw, dark, and real account. If you think you know what goes on inside a warehouse, think again. What you're about to see is the hidden side of routine, the one no one talks about over coffee. And the worst part? You might have already felt something similar yourself. Working with family can be a gift or a sentence. For me, it's always been a bit of both. My brother Tobias and I grew up helping build what is now our warehouse. He's the official boss, sure, but truthfully, the whole operation runs on trust between us. I'm technically the secretary, but I'm also the fixer, the firefighter, and occasionally the one making coffee for the truck drivers. I've always believed our shared effort was an unspoken pact between siblings. There's always been a comforting rhythm to our routine. Orders, deliveries, stock control. Nothing glamorous, but there was peace in the hum of forklifts and the dust of cement. Claudio, our longest-serving employee, was like family. I knew where every screw and bolt was better than I did. He never complained, never missed a day, and always brought sweet bread on Fridays. The trust among us was solid like the steel beams we sold. Even though it was just a warehouse, people were often surprised by how busy it was. Some days felt like open market chaos. And yet, everything flowed by instinct. I'd sense when Tobias needed quiet, and he could tell when I was about to lose it with a supplier. That kind of synchronicity doesn't come from any degree, it comes from years of boxes and spreadsheets. But we forget that even the most beautiful music can stop playing without warning. What I didn't know was that behind all that stability, something was about to break. Like a crack hidden under fresh paint. There were signs, small, subtle, hinting that something was off in the warehouse. But when you trust your routine too much, you ignore the whispers. And in my case, those whispers were about to become screams. It all started on a night that seemed perfectly ordinary. A night shift I'll never forget. The warehouse at night always had a personality of its own. During the day, it pulsed with customers and truckers coming and going. At night, it changed. Silence settled like a thick fog, and the sound of your own footsteps echoed like someone following you. Honestly, I liked it. The night shift had something meditative, almost therapeutic about it until it didn't. That night, everything seemed normal until it wasn't. Claudio, always punctual and composed, arrived unusually quiet. His eyes were strange, like he was both here and somewhere else. The temperature seemed to drop around him, and I swear that wasn't just in my head. When I saw him standing still among the cement bags, staring into nothing, a chill ran straight down my spine. That's when everything spiraled. Claudio dropped to his knees and, without saying a word, started stuffing dry cement into his mouth. Yes, cement. Like it was food. It was grotesque. He drooled, his eyes rolled back, and a deep, guttural noise came from his throat. I tried to stop him. I shouted, pulled at his arm, but it was like he was possessed. It felt like watching a nightmare unfold with my eyes wide open. We managed to restrain him, and Tobias rushed him to a private clinic. The doctor said it might be a psychotic break, but that didn't match what we saw. This wasn't just a mental collapse, there was something wrong. Something unseen. Heavy. Ever since then, that night shift was never the same. And neither was I. Because once you see someone taken over by something you can't explain, fear becomes your new coworker. In the days that followed, Claudio looked like a shadow of the man we knew. He was no longer the cheerful, reliable guy who used to whistle while organizing concrete blocks. His eyes were sunken, his skin pale like plaster, and he trembled even in daylight. But the worst part was the silencia, heavy, suffocating silence, loaded with something none of us could name. Even Tobias, the most skeptical person I know, began to feel uneasy around him. Claudio's behavior grew more disturbing by the day. He cried without reason, laughed in the middle of his shifts, and sometimes just stood there, staring at a wall for minutes on end. He claimed to see things. "She's here," he whispered once, just before collapsing in the back of the warehouse. His wife, clearly desperate, began showing up at work, pleading for help. She said he had started avoiding their daughter at home like he was afraid of her. That's what scared me most. Claudio, once the proudest, most doting father, now shrank away whenever his daughter came close. He said her eyes weren't hers anymore. That her voice changed at night. I didn't know what to believe. Part of meth rational side thought he needed psychiatric help. But another part of me, the part that remembered the cement, the trance, and the strange words in the air, felt something supernatural was happening. I found myself wondering if all of this was some kind of punishment. A possession? A curse? Would it be crazy to believe in witchcraft? Claudio's words echoed in my mind like a broken bell. She's here, she's here. The real question was, who was she? And why could only he see her? Slowly, the warehouse stopped feeling like a place of work. It became a stage for the inexplicable. And I was stuck in the front row. It was my mother who insisted I see a healer. She always said that some things can't be fixed with pills or therapy. At first, I resisted. I'd grown up thinking witchcraft was nonsense, something only naive people believed in. But something inside made desperation pushed me to that house filled with dried herbs and lit candles. The healer, an older woman with a steady voice and piercing eyes, welcomed me like she already knew why I was there. She didn't need much from me. She said a strange prayer, waved thick incense around my body, and then told me, with terrifying calm, this wasn't meant for you, but it reached you. According to her, someone had cast a curse. I was the target out of jealousy, rage, or some unresolved family grudge, but Claudio, always near me, had taken the blow instead. I felt a deep chill sink into my bones. It felt like reality had torn at the seams. Suddenly, everything made sense: the trance, the bizarre behavior, the shadowy figure Claudio claimed to see. The healer spoke of spiritual possession, of energy that clings to places like mold on walls. She prescribed cleansing baths, specific prayers, and a ritual to release Claudio from whatever had taken hold of him. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But deep down, I believed her. Honestly, no logical explanation could explain what we were living through. When I returned to the warehouse, it felt like something was watching me. I started noticing things I'd always ignored: noises from the ceiling, strange pops and cracks, shadows in places where there shouldn't be any. And worse than that, the guilt began to grow like a rotting vine inside me. Had I, without realizing it, doomed Claudio? It was a terrifying thought. But what haunted me more was this: if he took the hit by mistake, what would happen when it was my turn? After visiting the healer, things only got worse. It was as if acknowledging the evil had given it permission to come closer. I began seeing things subtle at first: flickers of movement, muffled whispers, a cold breeze across the back of my neck even when the air was off. But soon, the hallucinations grew stronger. I swear, I once saw a shadowy figure standing behind Tobias' chair, watching me with eyes that weren't human. Then came the nightmares. The same one, over and over me, running through the warehouse, knee-deep in cement, chased by distorted voices and a presence that never showed its face but always loomed. I grew terrified of sleeping. Coffee became my best friend. My reflection in the mirror turned into something I avoided. I had panic attacks during the night shift. One night, I even passed out between two steel beams. The worst part? No one else seemed to feel it. Tobias thought I was burned out. Some employees started avoiding Mehmet, afraid my madness was catching. But I knew. I felt it. This wasn't just in my head. It was like the warehouse had been infected by a living energy, something hungry, something waiting. And each day, it pulled me further into its grip. I stopped trusting my senses. Once, I saw Claudio staring at me from the bathroom door, except he was hospitalized. Another time, I heard his daughter's voice calling me from the parking lot. But no one was there. It was like living between two worlds, one foot in reality, the other sinking into something invisible. And yet, I kept showing up to work. Like all of this had become part of my normal routine. But I knew deep down I was losing control. And maybe my sanity too. There came a point when waiting was no longer an option. My mother and I decided to take Claudio back to the healer, even though his wife strongly objected. By then, he could barely speak or eat. He was like an empty shell, moved only by the last flicker of something dark. The healer prepared a powerful ritual: prayers, thick smoke, symbols drawn across the floor. The air itself felt charged, like something was fighting not to be expelled. For a few hours, we had hope. Claudio reacted. He wept uncontrollably. He said his daughter's name clearly. I thought we were winning. The healer said the curse was powerful, but he was resisting. My mother cried softly in the corner. That's when I realized witchcraft isn't just bad intentions, it's a living force, a slow poison that spreads in silence. And Claudio, no matter how hard he fought, was already too weak. In the early hours of the next morning, he died. Quietly, without warning. Like whatever light he had left had finally gone out. The news hit me like a hammer. And worse, the guilt crushed me. His wife, overwhelmed by grief, didn't hold back. She said I was the reason for everything. That if I hadn't gotten involved with witchcraft, none of it would have happened. And even though I knew that wasn't fair, a part of me believed her. After the funeral, the house and the warehouse were wrapped in silence. But not just the silence of mourning, this was fear, too. I no longer knew what was safe or who could be trusted. The shadowy figure still lingered around me, as if to remind me that the consequences weren't over. And yet, even at my lowest point, I felt I owed something to Claudio's family. That sense of debt would become my reason to keep going. After Claudio's death, I couldn't walk into the warehouse without feeling a weight on my chest. But life, broken as it may be, goes on. In the middle of all that confusion, I started visiting his daughter. At first, I brought snacks, little toys. Small gestures with no big plan behind them. She looked at me with a mix of curiosity and fear, as if she knew I was somehow tied to something she didn't yet understand. Slowly, a bond started to form between us. I read her bedtime stories, helped her with schoolwork, and before I knew it, I had become a constant presence in their lives. Her mother, still grieving, took a long time to warm up to me. But time quiet, relentless time softened the edges. The grief never fully left, but we began to share it. Like two people holding the same burning pot, hoping it might hurt less together. I still carried guilt, but now it walked beside a quiet attempt at redemption. One night, she asked me if her father was in a beautiful place now. I didn't know what to say. I just promised I'd do everything I could to make sure she grew up knowing how much he loved her. That's when I realized, whether I meant to or not, I had taken on a new role in her life. The dark figure still haunted my dreams, but now I had something stronger to hold on to, hope that pain could become care. With time, even Claudio's widow began to look at me differently. Not with affection, at least not yet, but with something close to a truce. A silent understanding. We never talked about forgiveness directly. Maybe because some wounds can't be explained with words. But there was a quiet agreement between us: we couldn't change the past, but maybe, just maybe, you could build something from what was left. In that bruised and battered home, I began planting something new. Slowly. Patiently. It was during a second visit to the healer that everything started to click. While she was performing a spiritual cleansing, she paused, narrowed her eyes, and said, "This came from close blood, someone in your family." A chill ran through me. And instantly, a name popped into my head: a distant cousin, the kind that only shows up for inheritance talks or when he smells opportunity. Had always envied Tobias. Always made little jabs about how the warehouse just got lucky. I started connecting the dots. That cousin had visited the warehouse shortly before everything went downhill. He asked too many questions, touched everything, even joked that Claudio looked like the kind of guy people lose. Back then, I just thought he was being rude. Now it felt like a warning. Of course, there was no proof. Witchcraft doesn't leave a receipt. But the coincidences were too strong to ignore. Then came the signs: his business tanked, his health failed, family drama exploded. It felt like time itself was collecting a debt. When I told Tobias what the healer had said, his face went stiff. Had always tried to keep the family together, even when it meant swallowing pride. But this time, he didn't push back. We both knew returning the harm wasn't worth it. In stories like this, revenge only feeds what's already rotten. We chose silence. Distance. And deep down, we trusted that time, quiet, relentless, and just, was already doing its work. This wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about balance being restored. Today, the warehouse still carries its scars, and so do I. But the shadow has lost its grip. The air feels lighter. Our routines are back on track, though now we move with more caution. Sometimes I still think about that cousin, the healer, Claudio's trance, and I take a deep breath. I haven't forgotten. But I've moved forward. Because sometimes, justice doesn't come with noise or evidence. It comes slowly, with time. And with the quiet decision to never let someone else's darkness snuff out your light. Not all evil arrives with sharp teeth or blazing eyes. Sometimes, it hides in the small details of your routine. In the quiet shadows of a night shift. In the strange behavior of someone who once felt unshakable. The story I've shared with you isn't just about witchcraft, dark figures, or possession. It's about pain, grief, guilt, and the relentless search for redemption. What I've learned often the hard way is that some forces don't fit into logic. And the justice of time moves in rhythms we'll never fully understand. Maybe the shadow never truly leaves. But we learn to live with it. We keep a light on, even if it's just a matchstick. In the end, it's not about erasing the darkness, it's about refusing to let it reshape us. If this story moved you in any way, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes, knowing you're not alone in invisible pain is the beginning of healing. And if you've been through something like this, something strange, unexplainable, heavy, tell your story. Speaking out is a form of healing. It's also a form of survival. And if you want to hear more true, raw, and deep stories like this one, subscribe to the channel, follow the page, or sign up for the newsletter, whatever works best for you. Because in the end, between the steel beams, the dust, and the silence, what we're all looking for is someone who listens. Someone who believes. Someone who might help us light the next candle.